Welcome back to another episode of We Burn Blue. Happy New Year, Sharon. How was your New Year?
Oh, it was all going like too well. Granted, the last couple of results weren't great, but yeah, I was having a great time, and at least they waited until January 1st to turn our world upside down, right?
I mean, I heard about it on the 31st. Like before going to bed, I'd seen like a couple of like rumors, and I think I sent it to you, or I was just like, nah, I can't be asked. Like it's fucking 31st night. I'm about to go to bed. We'll pick this up in the morning. But I saw it in the morning, and I think the first thing I said to you was, bro, this is going down.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's say they're not shy of at least pulling the trigger, right? These guys are definitely not gun shy. So they've obviously, for one reason or another, felt it's the right reason to sack Enzo Maresca. At least they allowed him to have a nice-ish Christmas, I guess. I hope so. But yeah, it kind of leaves all of us Chelsea fans wondering where do we go from here, right? So that's why we've kind of like probably a little bit prematurely decided to jump back and do the next pod.
I mean, you say he was sacked, but really, what the actual fuck happened? We won't know, man. Like it's too crazy because the timeline, man. Like I think everyone's just reeling from just the general timeline. You go from like Barcelona, like at the end of November, to the Everton game where he says the worst 48 hours, and then it's like a downward spiral. And I mean, genuinely, I don't know if he was sacked, if he said he wants to leave. I mean, the reports are so conflicting, but the sentiment, I mean, that I'm getting more is that he was done, man. He was done with the way the club is being run, and that's actually a worrying place for us to be in. And I mean, I don't know where you're at with it, but it's super, super like convoluted and complicated, man.
Well, I mean, it's something I wanted to talk about a little bit later on in the pod. All of the reports and the media reaction that we get right in this day and age. But before we get there, do you think justified or unjustified is this the right move?
I want to say no. I think it was a really badly timed move, and I think, um, yeah, we'll come to the reports, but I think that, the initial briefing in this, because this was not even 24 hours that this went from like he wants to leave to he's out, in that interim, the speed at which things were coming out was insane. And one of the things that came out initially was that they want to wait until the second year is done, which was always the plan. So I don't think that this was something that was premeditated. I think obviously no one's been happy with the way the recent results have been. I mean, you talk about dropping 15 points from winning positions, which is a league high, and those 15 points would have probably had us, second or third place given other results. And yeah, I mean, with all of that happening, I don't think that it was in anyone's mind to actually get rid of him. I think the results weren't good. Was it justified? I don't think so, but I think something's gone terribly wrong for it to have gone this way. Do you think it was justified?
No, no, definitely not. I will come on to this in a bit, but I really don't think this had anything to do with results. Obviously, like you've alluded to, there's other things going on behind the scenes. But if you're looking at it from the outside and at the time, as opposed to using all of this information that we get after the fact and in hindsight, right? There's no way there's any basis for this because um, the board have basically set out expectations. We're still not far away from those expectations, and there are a lot of contributing factors to our form, right? So for me, I'm just looking at fine. If it was a just decision, it would have been based on the fact that okay, results are not going the way they are, and we can find somebody better, right? Somebody who can get this same squad into tune, and kind of give us a better return, right, on the investment that we've made. So no, I don't think it's justified, particularly at this time in the season. Just to continue my point, right? Um, like they could have waited until the summer. I don't get the impression from these guys, right, that uh, if we had, let's say, gone back to Europa League at the end of this year, or not back to, we were never there, right? It was Conference League, right, last season. But yeah, if we did Conference League or Europa League, I actually think the board would have been fine with it. Maybe not, they wouldn't have been like, oh, okay, on top of the moon, but they would have given Maresca one more season, considering what he achieved and considering the injuries and considering this and that and everything, right? So that's something I wanted to get out of the way. I think it's totally unjustified letting him go, but now we can come on to how we think things actually played out. And like you're usually the first person I ask because you're more clued in to multiple multiple sources. Now I don't even know at this point who to trust, who's really got the in, who's being manipulated, who's getting the truth. Is the truth even out there? I don't know. But how is it that you think this panned out? Because you're saying that actually the signs were there and the build up was very fast. And then of course in hindsight, or let's say after the fact, there have been people kind of putting the pieces together about his comments about a centre back, needing one in January, and then the comments post was it the Everton 2-0 where he's saying he's not being backed. So give me your rundown on how you think this all panned out.
I'm going to sum it up in two very famous words in Chelsea history: palpable discord. Throwing it back. But yeah, I think that's basically what it is. My understanding of it, and I'm going to keep it brief because I'm sure everyone's heard and read every single article there is out there. Um, is just that Maresca felt like he wanted more say in things. It seems like he was not happy being just a coach. And it started with the comments about a centre back with, when Colwell got injured preseason. And I remember at that time, there was a very strongly worded statement coming out from. So yeah, in terms of reporters, to segue a little bit, there are some who are known to be club mouthpieces. They get briefings directly from the club and they are putting those out in tweets exactly as they are given it. And there's one or two like that, and then there are some who get info from other sources within the club, and some who are being fed by camps of the players and the managers, etc. Right? So the general consensus, without naming names, is yeah, there was a at that time there was a report that came out that basically said the club strongly believe that Maresca has enough centre backs at his disposal and he should be able to get the job done. And we had discussed this at the time and we said, okay, fine, you have Chaloba, you have Tosin, you have Hato who's come in who can play left centre back as well. You have Badiashile who's going to be coming back from injury. You should be okay in theory. Um, and also there was the fact that yeah, if we get another centre back, Achimpong's future seems uncertain. We want you to use him more. He hasn't really been used, right? These are some of the things that I think the decisions that Maresca has made that have sort of not worked in his favor, not using some of the younger talent. We've not seen Santos as much as we would have liked to. We've definitely not seen Achimpong. We've not seen the likes of Hato being used. These are not necessarily players who are injured. I mean, even when they're fit, we've not seen them being used so much. Um, there's that aspect to it. And then more recently, yeah, I mean, the Everton game where he said these have been the worst 48 hours. We've not felt backed. And then, I mean, I think that for me was like where shit started to go downhill. And then coming to the Bournemouth game where he basically doesn't show up for the post-match presser and Willie Caballero says, "Oh, he's sick." I mean, that was a couple of people I've heard I mean, journalists have said like that's when, our red flags were like, we were clued in that something's wrong. And I mean we're talking about Chelsea Bournemouth, which happened today's the we're so we are recording this, of course, ahead of the City game on the 4th. But Chelsea Bournemouth happened on the 31st. So it's a matter of basically first, second, third. Today we're on the fourth, three, like a day and a half in which he's gone, you know. And I think that just indicates how badly, things broke down, and what things have broken down, what's contributed to that. I think it's this lack of backing where he's felt like, and I'm sure with the January transfer window coming, he may have had more suggestions in terms of where the squad needs to strengthen, which he probably wasn't getting um any backing on, because I think the briefing's pretty clear again that we don't need to sign anyone this January transfer window. And that was our next spot agenda before all of this went down, right? Transfers. And honestly, like I don't see anybody that Chelsea can go and pick up immediately that's gonna be in like a season changing player or transfer for us at this stage right now. No one realistic at least. And yeah, in that respect, I'm sure he probably had some suggestions which weren't taken. There's this whole player management where he's been coming under fire a lot for his substitution decisions, taking off players at certain points, managing their minutes against popular opinion, which now turns out, the info coming out is that he was being told to do so by the medical department, and it was out of his hands, and he felt like that was also not, you know, that was not something he was enjoying. So all these things created an environment where what I understand is Maresca felt he didn't want to be here anymore. And then of course you have the added fuel of he was linked to City and he was linked to Juventus, and it while you can say that that's just fuel, the fact of the matter is that if you really go back in time and you track the timeline, the moment the City news came out, like it was around that time that our form went, really bad. So whether it's coincidence or whether it's just bad timing or what it is, it's just left a very, very like sour picture, because now you have on one side a manager who seems like he doesn't want to be here, I mean, at one point in all of this madness in this 24 hours, there were people on Twitter saying he's intentionally thrown some of these games, like some of these results, and you don't you whether it's true or not. I mean, if it's true, fuck that. I mean, but even if it's not true, you don't want that sentiment out there. You know what I mean? So you have that sort of thing happening, and then you have the club saying no, they want to wait, for 2 years and wait until the 2 year mark, and then just saying no, it was already set in stone, and the moment this happened, it was not working. It just leaves a very sour taste in everyone's mouth. So I mean, that's the way I understand it. And sorry if I rambled, but dude, really, it's just too fucking like turbulent, man. Really.
I mean, that's why you founded and created a podcast, so you could say whatever you want, man. So, yeah, I'm getting a lot of, again, it's a lot of information, and there's a lot of, let's say, reasoning from both sides, right? Because like I don't need to say this, but yes, there are two sides to every argument, right? And I personally, like, I don't know what to believe when I read stuff out there, but one thing we know for certain is Maresca came into this job knowing where the lines were, right? So look, I still feel for the guy because I think for me, he exceeded expectations last season. Winning the Conference League was the bare minimum. Qualifying fourth for the Champions League, that's pretty good. We probably would have taken Europa League last season. And winning the Club World Cup in the summer. I mean, geez, man, like you have to tip your hat to that. That's like class management. Now, it's not like you've won the Premier League or won the actual Champions League, right? So we have to temper that kind of hat tipping, right, so to speak. So I'm just saying, like, he definitely exceeded my expectations last season. And does that warrant? Maybe he feels like that warrants a little bit more credit in the bank and a little bit more say around the club. But the truth is, he should not have that expectation just because he knows what he's walking into. Uh, on the flip side, right? It's like, where is the line? Like, when you're from a fan, right? If you're looking at like Arsenal or Aston Villa, any of the top clubs, right? You know the managers are clearly having more say than what Maresca has, right? But you also know that they know where the lines are, right? So like Arteta's not going to go and negotiate the finances for a specific player, but he's definitely involved in the like maybe in the recruitment, but definitely in having a final say on that player's arrival at the club, whether they fit into the system, the mentality, whatever it is, etc., etc. But he's not going to look at the budget, right? Um, so this is what I mean. Where is the line? I mean, there's been talk of some of the board members going into the dressing room after games, and then the club comes out with a half-ass statement, or not half-ass. I should not say that. The club uses its own media, like let's say unattached media outlets, whether it's a mouthpiece on Twitter or whatever, to kind of say, oh, actually, that's an urban myth or whatever. Like it's just them going in to support the players, and all of the match review stuff is done after. So anyway, there's all of this like he said, she said kind of stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't want to work in that environment. Forget about what Maresca has achieved. He still knows where the lines are, right? But if those lines are constantly being pushed back into you, right, and you're losing less and less, you're losing more and more control, right? Imagine head of fitness or head of the medical department comes to you and says, "Look, Palmer can really only do 30 minutes, but Maresca is being held to lofty Champions League qualification, like standards or expectations, right?" He's like, "Nah, man, I need to start Palmer because I want to get this game done and dusted in the bag, and then he can come off, right?" And then the game doesn't pan out that way, but Palmer is still your best player. Do you see what I mean? So he's like, okay, look, he probably is like fine with the feedback. Like, okay, you've told me Palmer is cleared for 30, but he needs to do more because needs must. I have my own targets. But that's the whole balancing act, right? So I just wonder, have, is the system, is the structure that we've set up encroaching a bit too much? I think that's where I kind of feel for Maresca. I'm like, if I'm a manager, I don't want to be constantly questioned all the time about every single aspect of what I'm doing. But then the guys above me who are doing all the questioning, they're not actually enabling me to do any better. They're just telling me what I'm doing is wrong. And then you're not actually helping me fix it. They didn't recruit a centre back, even though it was plain and simple that Badiashil's fitness is just not reliable as a left-footed centre back. Hato's just prematurely entered the club, right? You're not going to play Cucurella at a ball-playing centre back role. Tosin is Tosin, right? So, like, this is the thing. Maresca knew what he was coming into, but he can definitely feel it's a bit unjust what's happened, in terms of how much is being questioned. And again, of course, it all depends if that's actually all very true or not, right? Whether the questions were actually amounting to an absurd amount, whether he was being critiqued in all areas of his management, and in a way that doesn't allow for learning. It's just more punitive. Um, what One thing I wanted to chase up on you though is this whole thing about entertaining Juventus and Man City. So is that all smoke and mirrors? Is that something that you think Maresca's kind of used his own PR and marketing to kind of get a new contract from Chelsea, because there was talk of that, right? Um, or do you think there's genuinely something behind it?
Okay, so I'll answer this. I'll come to this. Before that, right? When you say he knew the lines and he knew what he was coming into, right? And as a manager, I think that's where like there is a fundamental disagreement because he was never a manager. Arteta's a manager, right? Pep's a manager. He's a coach. His title is that of a coach, right? So he is very well within those lines anyway, naturally, right? And is this the right system for a coach to succeed in? I mean, I don't think you're going to see us linked with the likes of Zinedine Zidane or like a Xavi or any of these big names because they're not going to want to come into this sort of system, right? I think that's not going to happen just because we're looking for coaches. We're looking for someone who's going to work with all these various departments. I mean, I wanted to ask you this, right? Like we have four sporting directors. I mean, how many is too many at this point, right? You've got the sporting director set up, you've got your recruitment teams and their suggestions, you've got your medical team feeding information to the coach. And yeah, it is, I feel a little bit like it's getting to a point where there's too many cooks, especially with the owners interfering, right? Like you said, like walking into dressing rooms and all. It's creating an atmosphere that's not very sustainable for a long-term relationship, I think, right? Um, that said, like while I do understand that, yeah, you feel for Maresca in this situation, my understanding of at least the City conversation, maybe Juventus was a bit manufactured, or maybe it was, interest that came out. But from what I've understood about the City links is that he actually under contract is obliged to he's no, I wouldn't even say he's obligated to tell the club if there are any, if there's any contact from other clubs about, potential jobs. And he apparently has he told the club that on two separate occasions he was contacted by City, right? So I think there's definitely truth to that. And of course, like I said, when it comes to the timelines, at least the second time around seems to track with when results went south. Now, um, you can argue that, he worked at City before. He's probably, stayed in touch with a lot of these people. And it's a fair argument. I mean, you don't always leave a club burning bridges, right? You do stay in touch with people, right? So maybe there was informal communication, but whatever it is, it was enough for him to apparently come and tell the club, look, I have been approached. And if that's the case, and that's, messed with his head, I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm finding it really hard to digest just the whole structure of the club, right? Like is this an environment that's actually going to have success, or are we just basically looking at player trading and buying young and selling older with like a maybe, some success? I mean, right now I think there was 32 transfers that they've made and only five have been moderately successful. That's a pretty poor hit rate. And that raises questions, just like I said, about the sustainability of the whole thing. So I'm I'm very, very like, torn on this whole thing. I think, yeah, very torn. But your question, was there truth behind the City and Juve? I think definitely with the City there was some truth to it. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't like that.
I think for me, right, it's free market. Like a city should be able to kind of put feelers out there. Maresca should be able to do the same. I mean, what loyalty have Chelsea shown to anyone, let alone managers, right? Look at the players. They're like they're hard earned assets, right? All of a sudden, Disasi and Sterling are not actually professional footballers anymore. So, yeah, I mean, look, if Chelsea are going to play that game, they should expect it the other way as well. If Maresca is going to be all flirty with City, that's absolutely fine, and there's nothing illegal about that, and he should be allowed to do it, right? And also, by the way, if that's actually fed into the decision, fair enough. If Chelsea think that he's been distracted to the point where, okay, we actually, don't want this to go any further, right? We feel like Maresca, with his split attention or lack of commitment, will be a detriment to the club for the rest of the season. Then fine, then let him go on that basis. But I guess that's not something they'll admit to for, well, they won't admit to it for at least another season until they get rid of another manager. And then all of that information at that time will come out then. So that's the thing that irritates me about this whole thing. It's like, okay, so there are always issues behind the scenes. It's just a question of whether you guys want it, whether they want us to hear about it or not. But that's the position we're in as fans, right? But I think that's totally fine, right? If City want to approach your manager, firstly, that's high praise, right? You've attracted this manager, he's done well. So why not? You should be like, firstly, we've done well to get this far. But you also should have a system that keeps the talent, right? If you really back this guy to go all the way to the top, right? You should be able to keep him. He should be able to just kind of take meetings out of courtesies, but then when an offer arrives at his table, just reject it out of hand because he knows he's at the in the best possible structure. So that's what I think is missing in this whole thing. Is like you mentioned, right? We're looking for a head coach. We're not looking for a manager, and that's fine. Like you don't. Everybody should be able to operate in their own way, and with Chelsea, the way we're set up, we clearly have a senior management level. I'm not really sure what to refer to them as because they're doing things. They're going to a deeper level than a board of directors actually should. So, fine. Let's call them senior management or C-suite or whatever it is, but that means they don't need like a manager, who's overseeing certain factors of the club day by day. You have a head coach who's basically focusing on improving the players that he has, training retraining players into new positions, focusing on opposition analysis and preparing the team for games and setting up the team selection, integrating with the fitness and medical department. So there's a lot of stuff to do for a head coach, right? There's enough in that role for them to also be like, okay, this is satisfactory, and actually, in the long run, it could still benefit because you have a team of younger players, right, who do need developing. So I'm not arguing against the role, but I think what's happened here is Maresca has decided that actually, no, I'm now bigger than the role that I was given. And I remember this happening at Arsenal, where Arteta was promoted from head coach to manager. They've seen that distinction and they've rewarded him for his work, right? Maresca is not getting that same like reward. That's it. I think that's where we've landed. So Maresca's expectations have risen, and the club's expectations have stayed the same. And when I say the club, I mean the board. So we are where we are now. And it's a stupid question to ask, but where are we right now? Like we are now managerless, right? So where does that leave us as a project? You know?
Where do we go now? I mean, that's a great question. I really like the Arteta comparison you brought in, and it's pretty relevant because, like you said, they recognize it and they changed it. It was pretty clear, and I think it is pretty clear going forward that they see that distinction and they want to keep things the way they have them right now. So where do we go from here? I mean, I think we know who our next manager is most likely going to be. It's going to be Rosenior from Strasbourg, obviously. And I I mean, I don't know. Do you rate the guy?
I honestly haven't been following that much. I think he does get rave reviews now and then from Liga, but I think the key question is whether he is of the right mold or whether he's going to fit the criteria of a head coach.
So I think from a fit perspective, he's definitely going to fit the mold. He seems to be like he's worked within the structure, obviously, knows the sporting directors, and I mean, for all intents and purposes, he would likely have been like told at some point that look, you work with Strasbourg, you do well here, and there's an opportunity possible for you at Chelsea. So I wouldn't be surprised. They're currently seventh in the table, and from what I understand, there are certain sections of the fan base who are happy to see him go. His season, this season hasn't been as good as his last season was. So, um, I don't know. Like I think he fits all the boxes in that Strasbourg are obviously the way they've set up the two clubs, and I think the idea behind the multi-club model is to basically have all clubs within the model playing a similar style of play, enabling players to move between the clubs easily, right? So you have loans happening from Chelsea to Strasbourg, and you have players who were buying from Strasbourg, and the idea is that they'll fit in seamlessly. So with when it comes to like a tactical fit, I don't think that there'll be too much of a hassle. And when it comes to even the fact that they want someone who's going to execute exactly how they direct in it, to put it mildly, I think that won't be a problem. I think just the fact that he is a completely unproven manager, he has no winning pedigree, that doesn't really, speak so much about the Chelsea we know. Now, whether the current Chelsea is the Chelsea we know and love is a whole other conversation, right?
Well, I think actually that's kind of what I was asking you initially, but maybe we can kind of discuss Rosenior first. Um, yeah, I mean, like, if he's a yes man, then so be it. I think that's what you have to be to get this job. One of the things, it's one of the things you have to be. It's not a slight. At the end of the day, Tuchel went through the same issues. You have to be able to manage upwards if you're a manager, right? If you're not sitting right at the top, you should be looking at the top. Just to manage expectations, maintain relationships, all that kind of all that good stuff, right? So when it comes to Rosinia, like he not only has he got the mandate at Strasbourg, he's also now learnt he should have learned from Maresca that really, like, you either stay within your lines or you're pretty much gone. Like, there's not that much leeway, and they're not even, honestly, they're not even lambasting Maresca for terrible results. It's not like, oh, Maresca's been sacked on the basis of seven, what is it, 3 wins in 10, something like that. I can't remember the stat, but there's a lot of, like, mixed messages coming out from the back, which to me means, okay, look, Rosinia or the next manager, whoever that is, has a lot of learning to do, but they have the opportunity to do it because Maresca has succeeded at the club. I would use that word. Yet, still does not have much credit in the bank. So yeah, I think from that perspective, that's fine. In terms of, the winning pedigree, I only slightly disagree, right? Because at least Maresca won the championship, so he got his hands on a trophy. Granted, that was with a recently relegated Leicester, right? But still, look, you have to go out and win it, right? So, yeah, I only slightly agree, but again, the question is, like, okay, Rosinia comes in, he's not going to be expected to win anything. I think these guys in the board just want to see year on year improvement. Now, I don't think that the number of trophies or the quality of trophies or the position of finish, those are not the sole KPIs on which they are judging the managers, or sorry, the head coaches, right? If Liam Rosenior is able to, like, quadruple Malo Gusto's value, they'll be like, hey, that's a huge tick in your box, and we don't know which players they actually deem worthy of keeping and who not to. I mean, I've seen some reports that they're willing to sell Cole Palmer at a certain point, and I'm like, that would be absolutely ludicrous. So I think, like, it's high time we revisited the expectations that are actually being set by the board. So they're saying that somebody else, aka Liam Rosenior, right, will be able to come in and do a better job than what Maresca is doing. Is that fair? And also, they're basically setting a target of Champions League with the squad that we have, right? Sorry, Champions League qualification through the Premier League, right? I'm not sure what their target is for the Champions League itself and the other cup tournaments, but having said what I've said, are they being realistic? And would you say, okay, well, if they're realistic, would you aim higher?
Are they being realistic? I mean, I think yes, they are. And given some of the performances we've had, I mean, yes, recently you're right. It's been 3 wins in 10, and it's been pretty shocking results, some of them, right? Naturally, I didn't watch some of the last games because it's just been a really fun but busy holiday break. And I missed some of the games, but I think the manner in which we have been, conceding goals recently and, losing these points from winning positions, I feel like the problem is so evident and it's so clear to see, and I don't know why, it wasn't being addressed or what was going on there. But um, if a manager if a coach is able to come in, right, and see those problems and fix them, then I think it's a pretty realistic spot for us to be for us to be aiming towards, right? Because the squad is there. There is quality, man. There is quality in the squad. I mean, the fact that we were able to beat by Barcelona and hold off Arsenal while being 10 men, and hold them to a draw, it shows that this squad has something. And I mean, City today with the circumstances that we're in, I mean, a lot of people will look at it and say, "Fuck, we're gonna lose this badly." But there's another lot of people who say this is the exact kind of environment that Chelsea just fucking turns up and just goes against all odds, in that regard. So I don't know how it's gonna go, but I think there is quality. I don't know if we should be aiming higher because I think like when we discussed at the start of the season, right? Like expectations. I don't think the squad can go past the quarterfinals of the Champions League, at least in its current avatar. But at least if they're getting to the quarterfinal and they're able to get that, qualification for next season, now that is realistic. So I think the expectations are fine. Um, I just don't know if there's a little bit of a sense of actually it's not a little bit at all. There's a very strong sense and a strong sentiment. I mean, there's going to be protests in at home game. I think it's 17th Jan. There are protests planned at the Bridge, the Chelsea versus Brentford game, because that's our next home game. I mean, the fact that there is this sort of this dissatisfaction clearly geared towards one specific figure in the ownership, Baghdad Abali, right? Um, I think that's the bigger thing to address. Like how are we going to move forward in that regard? Because if they're not going to change things, then is this how it continues? Like every 18 months, someone comes in and we see them, leaving after 18 months because they're just not happy and something's changed. Like it's not sustainable, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the sentiment, but there's a lot more nuance with that, right? So, um, from the board's perspective, they probably think that Maresca's gotten a bit too big for his boots. So they've sent him off packing. A lot will come down to the temperament of the new manager and whether he's able to just be happy with the responsibilities that he agrees to have from the start of his contract. Some people would actually be happy, man. Like Maresca achieved great things, and he had a 5 or 6 year deal from the outset. He could have just sat quietly, done what he needed to do, and if he started to underachieve, people would know it's because he wasn't being given proven resources. So that's why that's it brings me to the main chunk of the question, right? Which is taking a step back and seeing where we are with the project as a whole, right? The first thing that I totally agree with that you mentioned is to have this sort of uproar and divisiveness. Is it 4 years? Is it now 4 years into the project? I think it is. To have that at this stage now, that's definitely a cause for concern because we're no longer in the second season, or we're no longer 18 months in, when Abramovich's funds is still kind of still up in the air, right? And his legacy is still there. I mean, it'll always still be there. But yeah, we're a little bit of a ways in now, and we should kind of get the gist of where this is going. The ultimate answer is we don't know where this is going, particularly because there's so much raw potential on the pitch, and we haven't got the right manager supposedly to be able to form these players into the diamonds that they're supposed to be. To use kind of a soft analogy there, but uh, yeah, I think ultimately my confidence in the project is just at a low again because we shouldn't be this divided as a fan base, and especially when we're talking about you know the lack of accountability and the poor performance of those who have responsibilities at a board level. Um, that's a real cause for concern, and obviously, like I don't think Maresca was unjustified. I think he was entitled to make requests that okay, the squad be strengthened properly. and I think other fans from other clubs would probably agree with the idea that look, we had the squad ready after the Club World Cup, right? But we went and chopped and changed it anyway. So, like when you're looking at this project from a long term perspective, there are a few of these things that have now set us back, and Maresca's sacking or walking away, whichever way it turns out to be, is going to set us back. How long for? I don't know. It depends who his replacement is, right? But the overall project definitely behind schedule, probably by 2, maybe 3 seasons, because we still have a very inexperienced, immature, young squad. I'm not denying their potential, but the way we're set up, I don't. I actually think it takes them longer to get that to their potential, to achieve their potential, than they would had we, brought in a few more experienced heads who these kids could learn from. And of course, we've got bloody Sterling and Disasi sitting God knows where. But you see my point, right? So as a project, as a whole, we're falling behind, like very far behind schedule, I think. And yeah, like you mentioned, four managers in 4 years. Even though we're supposed to be like this board is supposed to be different from Abramovich, and we're supposed to be patient and taking a long term approach. These guys, I don't believe a word that they say. The truth will always be in who they buy and who they sell, right? I think that ultimately comes down to the actions, right? And my faith in them as a fan, not it's quite low, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm completely with you there, and I think that um the project as it is, then I mean it may be two seasons behind schedule, but at the same time, I don't think that they're given everything that I mean, this is not just a current thing, right? Like based on previous windows as well, they don't seem like they want to, go out and get those experienced heads. Their model is firmly buy young talent, develop them, and keep the ones that, do really well and sell the ones that don't. And I think this has been a question that we have at various points on this pod and off the pod in our conversations always, it's always come up, right? You've always asked me at what point are we the finished product, right? When do we actually have that squad that's ready to challenge, that has like fully formed, that, if we need a 20 goal a season striker, we're going out and buying a 20 goal a season striker. We're not buying someone who has the potential to be a 20 goal a season striker, right? I don't see, they're very clear that they don't want to do it that way. So that just means that it's we're always going to be a work in progress, and if they're not going to have patience with managers, like you said with Arteta, right? Like Arsenal, they were at this crossroads, right? They had a coach who had potential, who, was not pleasing a lot of the fan base. They were calling for his head, and they chose to stick with him and eventually give him a promotion in the sense of he's now manager. And I mean, they haven't won it yet, but you you'd be you'd be like taking a risk betting against them this season at least, right? They're looking pretty good for it. And they finally seem like they've reached there. So there are definitely enough examples of teams who've stuck it out and they've seen progress and they've seen, you know, the benefits of doing so. I mean the way this current ownership is handling things, I mean, I think we talked about this previously. I remember mentioning this, that they said they wanted to be different from Abramovich and not, be so quick to hire and fire. I mean, it's 4-4 or whatever, maybe more at this point. I mean, if you really sit and it's probably more managers actually, if you could count all the interims. It's a pretty fucked up thing to be like a fit thing to be looking at as like a fan, like I mean, I'm very bleak. This is probably the most I've sworn on a pod ever, and it's really so fucked. And I mean, you know, for everything that we're saying, I mean, I can be a bit of a conspiracy nut at times as well. It's City next, and all of this is unfolded right before City. I mean, I don't know, did Maresca not want to fucking play versus City and orchestrate like some sort of like, pronged in City's title challenge, you'll never know. You'll never know what's really going on in someone's head at this point, right? But it's just really, really like the way it's gone down and the way it's happening right now. Um, there's things you can say, okay, fine, I see Maresca's point, but at the end of the day, like as a fan looking at the ownership, it's not a good place. I mean, like if I had the ability to, I'd attend a protest. I don't know what a protest is gonna do. They don't seem like they really care about the fans. I mean, they nobody has come out officially except through the briefings, right? No, except through all the various briefings, nobody's actually come out from the ownership, from the sporting directors to address this whole thing. They've gone and put the under 21s coach in charge of the team, and he's man probably never had to attend a press conference in his life, and he's out there saying, "Yeah, I'm not managed at this level. I mean, of course, I'm a little bit, I'm relaxed, but I'm sure the nerves will kick in as I get sooner to the game." Like, I mean, this is just like, I mean, this is Chelsea. It's a club that has something to play for, some pride. I mean, you're not conducting yourselves like that. And ultimately that's what's really, pissing me off. And then you have this whole CFC London movement that's happening. You have the whole stadium being in limbo and all the implications of like what they're trying to do there. And there's so many theories out there that, at some point you can connect the dots between the most wild theories out there. And it's like this ownership really doesn't care about Chelsea. They just want a football club that is making them money, and that's the way they're looking at it. And if that is what it is, then it's a very bad place to be as a fan, man, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want you to, come down to my level of negativity, but you've done it yourself. You can't blame me about this one. But yeah, it's not a great place to be, particularly like you mentioned, when you look at all of the balls that are supposedly in the air, but they're all being dropped simultaneously. No one knows what's going on with front of shirt. No one knows really what's going on with the stadium. These are all commitments that were made at the start of the project. So, yeah, faith in the project probably at an all-time low, and that's signaled by the upcoming protests. So, I mean, whoever is listening, that's not us. If you are in London and you support the club, it's up to you whether you want to spend the time to go and do that. But yeah, I think we both would. So, uh, coming back to the managerial discussion, right? Because they have to replace him, and I've already forgotten the the under 21s manager, but he's basically not in there for a while. I mean, maybe it'll be for a couple of weeks, but you really have to put in somebody who's at least managed at the top level in a first team, right? So not under 21s. If it's not Rosenior, right? Who else is available? And just because it's quite a pointed question, because obviously they've done this and there actually aren't that many, let's say, quote unquote managers or like top head coaches that are actually available. And this is why I like this, and what you mentioned earlier is why I think they actually just don't care about where we land up this season. We could go back to 10th place and they would be like, nah, we're sticking with our goal, we're sticking with our plans. The strategy doesn't change. But yeah, who else is available?
Man, who else? I don't even know at this point, man. You can throw a name on a dartboard and hope it sticks. It's that like chaotic. I think Rosenior is the favorite, just because of all the links he has within the setup and everything, and it's probably the easiest appointment. Other than that, I know Oliver Glasner was very quickly dismissed. I know you rate him highly, and he's doing a good job with Palace, but I think one of the reasons he wouldn't fit is because he's damn vocal about transfers. I mean, even with the whole Mark Gay situation at the end of the transfer window, he was pretty, out there saying we need him, and I mean, they ended up keeping him, right? He didn't go to Liverpool. Other names that have been linked, and that'll always, I mean, Frank Lampard is always a name that's going to be thrown in there. He's doing a good job with Coventry, and I don't know if he'd want to disrupt their season. Fabregas, at Como is an outside shout. I mean, I'd take a Fabregas because he seems to be doing really well with Como, but I mean, I don't know who this I really don't know at this point. There was another manager, I think the current is it the current sport the
I
this
think you're talking about Porto's manager
Porto's
Faraoli,
manager,
right?
right? Yeah. I think he was linked as well, but I don't know, man. I don't think a big name like a Xavi or a Zidane, who I think are both available, end up here. Uh, there's no chance that happens, I don't think. And
No, but basically, what I'm trying to like kind of indicate as well is we're obviously not going for a big name anymore, because it's not within the so quote unquote model. Whoever can explain that whole model to me and how they think it's going to work out, compared to the decades of evidence that we have at top flight Premier League football. But yeah, those guys are not within you know the criteria. So it's a question of, well, then who do you go for, right? And I'm not saying they're a bunch of unknowns, right? But why would a Fabregas? And honestly, he would probably be top of the list, right? Because he's young and up and coming. He's not too expensive. He's like again got his own system and philosophy, all that jibber jabber, right? And honestly, he would go top of the list because he's Fabregas, right? He has name, he has pedigree, right? So let's say he's top of your list. Why would he even want to manage Chelsea right now? You know, he's got like almost like a no strings attached thing with Como, where if it works out, amazing. If it doesn't work out, he's already done a fantastic job, right? He it's like a free hit over there. So why would he want to? What would attract him to Chelsea, and how would we even keep him for longer than 18 months? Because again, right, Maresca comes in, he takes this squad who don't know who he is, right? And he doesn't know half the players because they're under the age of 20, right? He gels them together for a whole season to the point where we actually win two trophies and we qualify for the Champions League, right? And whether we like it or not, he has decided that he wants more responsibility. And hey, guess what? In almost every career, right? Once you achieve certain things, you more often than not you want more. You want more responsibility, you want more recognition, you want more, etc., right? So he's basically leveled up his game. He wants more, and we're not giving it to him. So when Fabregas or Rosenior or Faraoli or whoever it is, Lampard, right? When they decide that actually, I'm sorry, guys, this structure isn't working for me anymore. I've done my part, right? I've kept quiet, but now I've achieved like what I think is good, and either you give me more or I go, right? What happens then? You just move on to the next one.
yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like, at what point do we become a club that has a manager past 2, 3 years, right? It's beginning to be a very real question that we're gonna have to face. And I mean, I don't know, like I said, if these protests do anything, but there's definitely like a sense that there are too many cooks in the structure right now. Um, I don't know who comes in. If it's Rosenior, I think there will be uproar at Strasbourg. I know there are a certain section of fans, like I said, who apparently wouldn't mind him leaving, but the fact of the matter is the general sentiment around the ownership is very negative at Strasbourg. And if they are seen like, if they're gonna just lift a manager and put him in the parent club, so to speak, and bring in somebody else, it doesn't speak so well. I mean, they're also going to be very, I mean, they've already been super vocal against the ownership. It's only going to grow, I can imagine. And yeah, dude, like, as for where we go from here, um, I don't know. We're still in the Champions League where we have the League Cups, versus Arsenal. We have FA Cup versus Charlton, and we're still in the league where it's not that we're out of things completely, right? I mean, we're not like our form's been bad, but we're still sitting fifth, right? So it's not that it's all over, but where do we go? Fuck if I know, man.
Anyway, it'll be interesting to see who they bring on If it is Rosenior, yeah, man, to be a Strasbourg fan, they're probably the ones who can complain, only ones who can complain more than us. So anyway, I think that kind of brings us to a slightly more general discussion, right? Of you're looking for young managers, you're looking for young players, right? Can you feasibly win the Premier League or Champions League with that setup, right? I mean, I already know you. I don't think you can. I think the answer is definitely no, because even when Arsenal had a very, very young team, and we're talking like 20 years ago, right? They had Mr. Wenger, right? The guy who like basically reinvented Premier League football when it started. Experienced head, old head, somebody you look up to, right? Whereas if you have young manager, young players, and a board of directors who half of them don't know what they're doing, right? They don't know football, and the other half are not being held accountable. Who who is leading this thing, right? Who do like if I'm a young player going in, who's going to take me under their wing and show me the way, the Chelsea way, right? If I'm a manager who's learning, the ropes of senior football management, right? How much leeway am I going to get? So my question is, you're hiring young, you're buying young. Do you think we could actually win the two most serious titles we chase under this project?
Not the way things are currently. I mean, without beating about the bush, not the way things are currently. You need a little bit of stability. I think this was probably the most stable we've had in terms of the squad this window. Um, we needed the manager to be stable, and they've only gone and just thrown that out the window. So, if this is how it's going to be, where there's going to be squad shakeups and then managerial shakeups, I don't think we're challenging for the big honors anytime soon.
See, that's another thing. You touched on a great thing there, right? That's another thing we lose out on with Maresca going. He was building a reputation for himself as a manager that the players wanted to work with. Because, again, I'm not sure what to believe. There was a lot put out in the media, right? But nothing came out as he was rude or hard to work with, right? Like Sterling and Disasi, again, they are always the caveats to every discussion we have, and they're not his fault. Again, it's excess from the board. So put that to one side. He seemed to be somebody who was trying his best to improve the players that he had and trying to meet the expectations of the board in terms of the targets that they set. So, like at this point, again, I'm like, okay, if he doesn't work out, right? He was pretty young, and he wasn't really, let's say, given the time to figure out this next conundrum, right? Does it take somebody like a Frank Lampard to come in? Do you know what I mean? Somebody who actually knows the club. And I'm reticent to say that he actually has credit in the bank when he comes in. But does it take somebody like that to come in?
You know, maybe it does. Maybe bringing in someone who knows the club, who knows the Chelsea DNA, more intimately. It takes someone like that coming in to actually stabilize things. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we've had Frank Lampard once already under this ownership. And it was a very stopgap temporary measure that, was far from ideal. Um, and like you said, would a Lampard even want to come in? It's a very volatile environment, right? You have, I mean, Fabregas also fits the mold that way. He's played at the club, he's won with the club, he knows what it is. He played in England early as well when he played with Arsenal, so he understands the league. Um, would he even want to come at this point? I really don't know, man. I really don't know. I'm very much in limbo. I'm usually one to preach patience with the ownership. I think I said, it seemed like things were looking up, and I'm not so certain anymore, at least at this stage. Like I don't know what's gonna happen versus City. I don't know what's gonna happen in the next run of games. I mean, it's a very busy January period. We have what, 9 games in the month, and I don't know what we're looking at like in when we're recording next. I mean, transfer wise, I don't even see any business being done. I hope we can offload Disasi and offload Sterling and maybe sort out some of the players on loan. But other than that, I don't see us doing anything any making any major moves in the window. So I think we're looking at a very similar squad at the end of the window, and I don't know where we're gonna be come the end of Jan, really.
Yep, fair enough. A bit of a fun question for you. My wife, um, since she also gets to share in the disappointment of Chelsea through vicariously through me, she did ask me though if this board picked up the phone and they called you, Prashant, and they said, "We want you. We want you to be the guy to see us out at least till the end of the season." Right? Do you go and work under their stewardship?
I mean, if they allow me to bring you on as an assistant manager, sure, because you can
Oh,
handle the
thanks, man.
tactics.
Thanks for the I get the ass man job. Yeah, just title me ass man. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
No,
That's
but
a
it's
good
it's
answer.
it's it's really funny you should mention, Jocks, because I mean, I'm in a similar conversation here with Niv as well about the ownership, and she's just like, how do you like what is the stand you take? And I think I asked you this, right? Like, what do you feel about this? Like, if you had a chance to, if like if Boli and Iqbali were listening to this right now, what would you say to them?
Pay me my money, I will come and do whatever you want. But guess what? If I'm saying that, it means there are a lot more talented managers out there who are thinking the same thing, and that's not what you want as a fan of the club. You don't want that in your manager, do you? If they're basically if they're raising this whole thing as like a it's turning out to be like a mercenaries for hire, right? Who's willing to sit in the seat for the next 18 months, take the hits while this project eventually develops into whatever it's meant to be, right? It's not a great feeling, and there doesn't feel like there's any longevity, and it doesn't build any sort of trust or kind of deeper relationship with the club from a fan perspective.
Yeah, I think I'm more like jokes aside, I'm like there is no relationship they have right now. And I mean if I could say something to them, I'd be like, yo, get off your high horses, start speaking to the fans, and start like trying to understand what it means to run a club like Chelsea. Don't treat it like a business. Enough of that, like it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, and it's never going to yield success in the way that football fans want success.
Yeah. Well, luckily for them, they really only care about money. So I think I think we've kind of slated them enough. Uh, in terms of, let's say, what you've heard as a whole, right? I actually we brought this up at the top of the pod, but I just wanted to bring it up again and maybe discuss in a bit more detail. When these sort of things happen, whether it was Pochettino or now with Maresca, right? When these guys go, that's when it feels like within hours of them leaving, the announcements made, all of these like X being formerly known as Twitter, all of these accounts are ready to post with like anecdotes or kind of like key insights from the club saying like, oh, well, Maresca, apparently he, was kind of against being mandated by the medical department as to how long players could play. And that was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Where, like, where do they come up with this shit? And like, are they just sitting on this waiting for this stuff to happen? And is the club just, when I say the club, is the board just that prepared in advance that they've got all these things ready to go, so that they can control the narrative? Or do you think it's a little bit less manipulated than that?
No, I think it's 100% manipulative. I think that's exactly how it is. They have all this info, they have these anecdotes, they have statements prepared. We've seen it before. I mean, we've seen it. I think one thing this ownership group have done, it's been, at least under the Abramovich era, you had Granovskaya, you had Petacek, you had these people who were coming out and speaking to fans. You don't have that with this ownership. You have certain journalists and outlets that are designated, mouthpieces in a sense, and they are fed info and told what to say when to control the narrative. So yeah, I think it's 100% manipulative, man. And even now, like, the news still continues to trickle out and you don't know what to believe, right? There's this other, I think one of the latest things is that Maresca was so angry that he's not even bothered about his compensation package and he's just left without it, or he said like he wants to leave, without figuring that out. And again, I don't know. Do you think he'd leave upwards of 12, 13 million pounds on the table and just walk away? Or, I mean, what do you believe at this point, right?
Exactly. I think that's what it comes down to. I'm not sure I necessarily believe that. I think, we'll probably only find out in someone's biography 20 years from now when the statute of limitations or any sort of non-disclosures are actually expired. Until then, I don't think Maresca was that emotionally tormented that he would have left. If you're saying 12 million pounds, man, even if that's taxed to whatever it's taxed to, there's no way he leaves that on the table. I'm pretty sure they will have worked out something behind the scenes, which is a lot lower, but he will have agreed to something lower just so he can walk out today or whenever it was, January 1st, right? Um, because yeah, I mean, he did have quite a long contract, so the club would have been in a very kind of poor position in terms of negotiating his exit. And that is, of course, that if that's something they wanted, right? Again, don't know what to believe, don't know what I'm hearing, but what we do know, and again, if there are any fans out there listening to this pod, when you're reading this sort of stuff, just keep in mind that even the most official accounts who are quoting directly, those quotes have been prepared, right? More often than not. So take everything you kind of listen and read, obviously with a pinch of salt. And yeah, I if there's one thing, which is kind of like a two-faced comment, right? But oh, sorry, two-faced compliment. But if there's one compliment I would pay to this board at this point is they're very good at managing the narrative, at least on the socials. They make sure that they're getting their support and comments out there.
Yeah. I think that's easy to say. That's fair to say. We'll never know, but yeah, it's just what a way to start the new year, right? How many times have we said this, that it's never a dull moment being a fan of this club? And I mean, yes, Happy New Year 2026, Chelsea fans. And hopefully, we have some stability um in this year.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I can feel you trying to exit this podcast, but we're not done yet. So you need to just stay seated, mate. So yeah, very, very disappointing results, in the last week of last year. So we had a Villa loss and we had the Bournemouth draw. Um, but still entertaining games. So, we are starting this year on the back foot, right? As you do, as Chelsea fans are now used to at this point. This time of the year, always tough, regardless of who's in charge, who's being sacked, whatever it is. This is always a tricky period, which is again, it felt a bit premature with this whole thing with Maresca because if we had reached February and actually January wasn't such a bad month, I think it would have been akin to the Boli Egbali showdown, which has since blown over because what they do is they find common enemies to sack. So anyway, uh, this is my long-winded way of saying let's wrap up the pod with some predictions. So we've got the all important game against City, and we obviously don't know how long the current sort of stand-in caretaker manager will be in charge for. But you backing us to be galvanized for the City game? Do you think Maresca will be at the the City box?
Well, by the time this is out, we'll probably know what's happened with City. But w where we're sitting, I mean, it would, like I said, it would be the most Chelsea thing to show up and just beat City. So I don't know how it's gonna go. Um, we have Fulham away up next, and then Charlton in the FA Cup. Um, I think we should be winning both of those, but it's so variable, man. I really don't know like how to predict anything right now, to be very honest.
Okay, so this is you abstaining from predictions. I'm just gonna let you get away with it because you manage the socials anyway. So, but just for everybody's record, since I'm enjoying, all this Chelsea negativity, yeah, I obviously think we're gonna get battered by City. I've captained Haaland this week, since it's no longer that much of a secret that I'm the one managing our FPL. But yeah, I've captained City. I mean, I've captained Haaland for City. And yeah, I also think we lose to Fulham. Um, I don't think I need to explain why. I don't think we're gonna have a new manager who's gonna come in and have his bounce yet. Uh, Charlton, right? My gut is saying we are going to make a huge meal out of. I think it's going away to Charlton. You've put it here in the notes. We're gonna go away. If this is FA Cup, it means
It is FA Cup.
Means
replay. Or have they stopped the replays? Anyway, I think this ends in a draw, and either it's a replay or it goes to penalties, and we will go through. Okay, but just about. Brentford at home, probably lose. And I think our first, out and out 90 plus minutes win, I'm predicting is against Paphos. It's funny how Maresca is gone now after who is it? Who is it that he lost to? Which I said his head should be on the chopping block, and we did actually lose to them. So that was quite funny. Karabag, yes, that's the one. So yeah, Palace away, we're gonna lose. Napoli away, we're gonna lose. West Ham at home, we will win. So I feel like that's as negative as you can be. Before the pod, we did wonder whether it was worth going into some verbal predictions, especially since I was likely to say we're gonna have like 6 or 7 losses out of the next 9 games in January. But I just went ahead and did it anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, you did it anyway. I think I'll go wins over Fulham and Charlton since we're doing it, right? Brentford, I think we beat Paphos. I think we beat Palace away. We lose Napoli away. We probably draw. Though we should win if we want to like just make sure we don't have that playoff round of fixtures. But I think it's looking like we're gonna have that. And West Ham home, we should win. I'm still gonna be positive, but honestly, at this point, it's just like I'm it's like hanging by a thread. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, just to kind of summarize the discussion, because I think we've gone on now a bit too long, but you mentioned something earlier about taking a stand or stance on the situation, right? My initial reaction was apathy. There's a lot of other shit going on in everyone's lives, right? And if this is the way the club is going, then this is the way the club is going. Uh, it does feel like a very tough club to support, but Mr. Optimus, you said it yourself. We're in all the cup competitions, uh, even though we're trying very hard to get knocked out of the Champions League. Uh, but we're still fifth in the Prem. Never expecting to win the Prem. A title contention would have been nice, and we got our usual mention of title contenders in September, October anyway. So Champions League qualification is still on. So it's not all doom and gloom, but yeah, it's kind of like at this point, what am I really supporting?
Yeah, exactly. What are we really supporting, right? On that note, uh, I think we're gonna call it on this one. Follow us on the socials. Let us know what you think. Give us a review on Spotify and share this with other fans if you agree with what we're saying or don't. I mean, at this point, we burn blue anyway, right?
Yeah, we always burn blue. Maresca is just switching which blue he's burning. And if you are listening to this, I think Prashant needs a little bit of energy and love sent his way. So definitely find us on the socials, send him some love, and yeah, definitely rate us 7 stars on the pod if you can do that. Otherwise, I think it's just 5 stars. But yeah, let's end it there before Prashant just completely capitulates. I think we've drained him enough.